With the inception of Dragon Ball Daima, it is heavily speculated that the Super Saiyan monkey form will return for Goku, and of course that brings back and harks back to Dragon Ball GT when Goku attained Super Saiyan 4. Of course, since then Dragon Ball Super debuted the God forms which use God Ki, Super Saiyan God and Super Saiyan Blue, otherwise known as Super Saiyan God Super Saiyan. Of course, we can talk about Ultra Instinct another time. But this has led to a lot of people bringing back the arguments that Super Saiyan 4, in terms of a multiplication of power over the previous form, Super Saiyan 3, is greater than that of Super Saiyan God and Super Saiyan Blue when taken into account how they are portrayed in the manga of Dragon Ball Super by Toyo Taro, with some people even questioning the portrayal in the Dragon Ball Super anime in relevance to what they believe was Toriyama's intent behind the power of those forms, and ultimately the goofball messing up that Toei usually do with the power scaling in Dragon Ball. So just a quick bit of history on why people believed the God forms vastly surpassed Super Saiyan 4 in the first place. Obviously we had Dragon Ball GT, there was no particular multiplier ever given to Super Saiyan 4. We did get the Super Saiyan 1, 2, 3, the golden haired Super Saiyan multipliers in the Super Exciting guides concerning the manga, and obviously everybody applies that to the anime. Nothing was ever given to Super Saiyan 4. I own copies of the GT Perfect files, no mention of the multiplier for Super Saiyan 4 over that of Super Saiyan 3. Now I'm sure a lot of people remember when people used to often state that Super Saiyan 4 was a 10 times multiplier over Super Saiyan 3. That's quite an enormous power up when you consider that Super Saiyan 2 was only 2 times that of Super Saiyan 1 and Super Saiyan 4 was only 4 times that of Super Saiyan 2. In fact, it's a bigger gap in terms of multiplication of power than Super Saiyan 3 is over Super Saiyan 1, which is only 8 times Super Saiyan 1. Of course, a lot of GT stands have a huge problem with this. They think it's a lot bigger multiplier than that. I actually argue that 10 times multiplier is actually pretty damn huge of a multiplier post Z. The only multiplier that surpasses it, at least that we can guarantee, is that of the original Super Saiyan transformation, which is a 50 times base multiplier. Regardless, 10 times multiplier for Super Saiyan 4 over Super Saiyan 3 isn't even an official multiplier. It could be anything really, could be lower, could be higher. We will get into this because people love to use destructive capacity scaling in order to measure Goku's raw power levels in terms of multipliers, which is a terrible way to go about it. Obviously, you can go through Dragon Ball GT and look at how he compares and fights against other characters and make educated guesses from there, but that's always at the risk of not including his base level power up, which obviously increased the overall total raw power that a Super Saiyan 4 would have if Super Saiyan 4 has a set multiplier on top of it, as well as the fact that he often uses a 10 times Kamehameha, which we'll also get into later. Of course, let's just bring into Dragon Ball Super. Dragon Ball Super, the reason why people generally believe the God forms vastly surpass that of Dragon Ball GT was that initial punch clash with Beerus, which nearly shattered the entire Universe 7 macrocosm. This was a feat that vastly outweighed anything we saw in Dragon Ball GT by quite some distance, leading a lot of people to say, well, that's clearly evidence that Super has surpassed GT already, and obviously that was only the start of Dragon Ball Super, even in comparison to the end of Dragon Ball GT, given that Dragon Ball GT chronologically happened wildly after the first initial events in Battle of Gods in terms of the Dragon Ball timeline placement. But here is why destructive capacity feats in Dragon Ball aren't a good way to measure a measurement of multiplier of raw power in Dragon Ball. We know that destructive capacity ability in Dragon Ball doesn't grow in accordance or linearly with the rise of raw power. It actually grows way faster. Look at Goku in original Dragon Ball with a power level of 10 and a Kamehameha, barely destroys a car, power level of 139, Roshi destroys the moon. So if a character does grow 10 times in terms of raw power reserves, their destructive capacity is likely, or typically does, grow much more than 10 times that of what it previously was. On that note, that feat, if you do take it as Goku destroying the Universe 7 macrocosm alongside Beerus in Super Saiyan God, if you agree with that interpretation of it, some people don't still, but if you agree with that interpretation of it, then Goku arguably went from galaxy level to universal level in one transformation. But does that necessarily mean he's gotten millions to billions of times stronger in terms of raw power. Not necessarily, which I just exampled by talking about the Goku Kamehameha compared to Roshi's Kamehameha destroying two objects completely and wildly different in mass. But still, the portrayal of Super Saiyan God in the anime of Dragon Ball Super did seem like an enormous multiplier of power over Super Saiyan 3. But that's the real reason that a lot of people generally consider the God forms to vastly surpass that in terms of multiplier over Super Saiyan 4. Especially at the time in the inception of Dragon Ball Super, because Super Saiyan God was the shiny new thing, everybody was basically wanking it off to the high heavens, and even though I like the form personally, people were going a bit overboard with it. However, as time progressed, Super Saiyan God doesn't seem as big of a multiplier as everybody initially thought. The same happened with Ultra Instinct, by the way, but ultimately people don't consider Super Saiyan God an enormous multiplier of power over Super Saiyan 3 as much as they used to, especially now the manga has really developed and gone beyond the anime in terms of narrative. Super Dragon Ball Heroes, whilst not really a mainstream canon of Dragon Ball, even though it is in its own right a canon, often portrays Super Saiyan 4 as powerful as Super Saiyan Blue, with the limit-breaking Super Saiyan 4 transformation not that far off of Ultra Instinct Saiyan Goku. Another point of belief of why Super Saiyan God vastly surpassed Super Saiyan 4 was because it was also compared to a Super Saiyan Fusion. In the anime, it was stated that a Super Saiyan Fusion wouldn't stand a chance against Beerus, but the belief that Super Saiyan God would stand a chance. This was stated by Goku in episode 5 of Dragon Ball Super. However, I guess you could argue that Super Saiyan God Goku lost against Beerus as well, and also Goku had no idea exactly how powerful God would be when making that statement. Neither stood a chance against Beerus. As we know, even a Super Saiyan Blue fusion doesn't stand a chance against Beerus, really. Still, in the manga, that statement's not even made. Goku doesn't make the fusion God comparison in the manga, so you could argue that it doesn't really even exist in the manga, and you could definitely make counter-arguments against it in the anime. But obviously, a hypothetical Super Saiyan 3 Vegeta would be more than 400 times stronger than a Super Saiyan 3, vastly surpassing the earlier proposed 10 times multiplier of Super Saiyan 4. Even if you want to go beyond the 10 times multiplier, you've still got quite some way to get to before you get to 400 times. And then of course we have the later example in the Tournament of Power that showed base Kefla being vastly too strong to the point where she could probably one-shot Super Saiyan God Goku at that particular time, showing that even base fusion surpasses the Super Saiyan God multiplier, especially given that neither Kale or Caulifla are actually as strong as Goku in Super Saiyan 3. Obviously that once again was in the anime. In the manga, Super Saiyan God's portrayal in terms of a multiplier over Super Saiyan 3 doesn't seem to be quite as big. It's definitely enough to one-shot a Super Saiyan 3 level character, but as we saw in the Broly movie, Broly's Akari state surpassed that of Super Saiyan God. His Akari form was basically a humanoid Super Saiyan 4 form, really. Not Super Saiyan 4, I guess, maybe an Uzaru humanoid form. There are similarities, of course, but the best we can go on that is that would likely be a 10 times multiplier given the Uzaru transformations multiplier, which was 10 times. And that allowed base Broly to go from just stronger than a Super Saiyan Vegeta to beyond that of a Super Saiyan God Vegeta and Super Saiyan God Goku. So this indicates a small multiplier of power of Super Saiyan God over that of Super Saiyan 3. However, some people will say, well, the portrayal of Super Saiyan God seemed massive over that of Super Saiyan 3, and why would Goku be so excited over Super Saiyan God if it wasn't that much of a multiplier? Well, Super Saiyan 2 was also portrayed in that similar manner, where Gohan was running wild with the Cell Juniors and Cell, and that was only a 2 times multiplier, of course with a potential anger boost, but Goku and Vegeta still celebrated Super Saiyan 2 in the Buu Saga, so it is definitely significantly beyond that of Super Saiyan, and the portrayal of it was still very strong. A 2 times multiplier is enough to one-shot an opponent quite easily. In fact, percentage differences have done so quite regularly in Dragon Ball. Now, I'm not saying that is the multiplier of Super Saiyan God. However, if you really wanted to lowball it, you could go that low. I don't think it is that. I don't know exactly what it is, but you could go that low if you wanted to completely lowball it, as is the norm in traditional power scaling. Of course, Super Saiyan God isn't the only God transformation. In Resurrection of Earth, Goku unlocked Super Saiyan Blue, which is basically Super Saiyan God turning Super Saiyan, basically using Super Saiyan with God Ki. In the anime, it seems to be a 50 times multiplier over that of Super Saiyan God. I think the best fight to gauge that is his fight with Kefla in the Tournament of Power. However, in the manga it takes a different direction. It doesn't even seem to be a 10 times multiplier over Super Saiyan God as witnessed in Goku's fight against Hit in the Universe 6 vs Universe 7 tournament. However, he does make it stronger when completing Super Saiyan Blue later against merged Zamasu. So is Super Saiyan Blue a 50 times multiplier in the manga over Super Saiyan God? Unlikely, but it possibly could be. Once again, we don't have an exact number, but if we're lowballing this stuff, then you can squeeze it right down to possibly 20 times that of Super Saiyan God. Of course, in the anime, Goku also uses Kaioken, which amps his power beyond that. He can go up to 20 times, but that is a technique used on top of a transformation. It's not a transformation power-up, and obviously we know that Kaioken is a very unreliable source of power. So if Super Saiyan Blue is 50 times Super Saiyan God, then you've got to go some way of wanking Super Saiyan 4 to be that strong. However, it's only 20 times as what it could be in the manga at a low ball. Once again, I'm not stating that's the official number, I'm just stating it could be a low ball. Then you don't have to do quite as much work, especially when you take into account that Super Saiyan 4, whilst being called Super Saiyan 4, is actually the 5th power-up for Goku in GT. In between Super Saiyan 3 and Super Saiyan 4 is the Golden Uzaru state. Now, there was a gaming guide that once stated this is 500 times base, but that was a gaming guide. It is official source material, but how seriously and how much weight in terms of qualitative evidence do you consider that? I personally don't consider it that heavy in terms of evidential quality. Ultimately, it is vastly stronger than Super Saiyan 3, as we witnessed in Goku's fight against Baby. So is the Golden Uzaru raw power multiplier over Super Saiyan 3 similar to that of Super Saiyan God in Dragon Ball Super? Well, it could be, especially when you consider that Super Saiyan 3 Goku in GT was getting his ass handed to him on a plate by Baby Vegeta's third form, and then when he went Golden Uzaru, he was completely and utterly on the ropes, and then when Goku turned Super Saiyan 4, Baby's form at that time was barely even registering on Goku's radar, and then he had to go Golden Great Ape himself, which then allowed him to fight on par with Super Saiyan 4 Goku. So the Golden Great Ape, whilst it was projected as 500 times in that game guide that I mentioned, which basically goes off of the fact that it's 10 times that of Super Saiyan, given the performance of Golden Great Ape against Baby, I would say that it's at least 2 times that of Super Saiyan 3, and could arguably be 10 times that of Super Saiyan 2, if not Super Saiyan 3, in terms of raw power multiplication, which puts it on par with the low balls of Super Saiyan God. And I think most of us now will agree that Super Saiyan God's multiplier has devalued over the course of Dragon Ball Super's run. Given Golden Great Ape then put Baby back on par with Super Saiyan 4 Goku, then you could argue that it is quite possible that whatever that Golden Great Ape multiplier is how you can then find a number for Super Saiyan 4 Goku. If it is 10 times, then putting him back on par with Super Saiyan 4 Goku is likely going to make it circa 10 times that of Golden Great Ape. Which, guys, sounds eerily similar to the portrayal of the Super Saiyan God and Super Saiyan Blue multipliers in the Dragon Ball Super manga, at least the initial Super Saiyan Blue multiplier, not the completed version. However, that isn't the end of the road for Super Saiyan 4, because there's the fully powered Super Saiyan 4 form when he gets Saiyan power from other Saiyans and it takes his power beyond its limits, which kind of sounds like it's very similar narratively to completed Super Saiyan Blue, doesn't it? So it does seem like Toyotaro using the manga have actually aligned it more with these transformations in GT, which just seem to resemble the way it's portrayed in Super Dragon Ball Heroes. It's almost like it's what the franchise wants because it wants to sell toys. Narratively, you can even go further and bring into account Goku's Kaioken times 10 at least by saying that GT Goku has Kamehameha times 10, which is a very similar concept in terms of a technique multiplying and amping their power by 10. So at least in terms of the manga of Dragon Ball Super, you could easily argue that the Super Saiyan 4 forms are somewhat on par with the Super Saiyan God forms. I don't know about stronger as some people are claiming, but I do think they will probably have different beneficiaries in terms of fighting style over the God forms. The God forms seem to be about condensing ki down and having more control, whereas Super Saiyan 4 seems to be a much more aggressive form, and I believe that's what we'll see in Daima if the demonic monkey form returns. And if Daima should reconnect with Dragon Ball Super in the future and go beyond the superhero arc, maybe Goku will have a way to find a balance between the demonic monkey and the angelic god forms to create Super Saiyan 5. But just to close off this video, obviously in terms of base power, GT Goku's vastly after End of Z Goku, so chronologically his base has risen quite exponentially, but obviously in Dragon Ball Super there seems to be the Saiyan Beyond God concept, which seems to have put him at that level anyway, if not beyond, and then the Super Saiyan Blue multiplier does seem to be bigger in the anime than it is in the manga, so there are some complexities and caveats. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section which form you think is the strongest, and are you looking forward to seeing a demonic monkey form in Daima, and should it have some sort of role later down in the line in Dragon Ball Super. So personally, I do think the franchise wants Super Saiyan 4 and Super Saiyan Blue at least aligned. I think Ultra Instinct's the strongest for now. However, even the multipliers for Ultra Instinct don't appear to be incredible multipliers of raw power over that of Super Saiyan Blue, given statements in the superhero movie. Like I said, drop your thoughts down in the comment section. Make sure you subscribe if you're not subscribed. Until next time, Ad Astra.